Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something timeless. Your words may echo, but your presence commands. In a world where noise is everywhere, social feeds, opinions, debates, distractions, the woman who speaks less and does more becomes magnetic. Not because she says nothing, but because what she says matters. She doesn't have to shout to be heard. Her silence speaks volumes. Her energy enters the room before her voice ever does. Power comes from presence, not volume. There's a misconception in the modern world that the louder you are, the more powerful you appear. That the one who talks the most, dominates conversations, fills the silence, and demands attention with noise, is the one in control. But the truth is, real power rarely needs to announce itself. The most powerful people often say the least. They walk into a room and shift the energy without uttering a word. Why? Because they've built something far deeper than noise. They've built presence. Presence isn't just about being physically present. It's about commanding the moment with your energy, your certainty, and your calm. It's in your eye contact, your posture, your stillness. It's the quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, without needing validation. When you've developed a strong internal foundation, rooted in discipline, integrity, and self-trust, you no longer feel the need to oversell yourself to anyone. You become grounded, and grounded people don't rattle easily. They don't speak to be heard. They speak when it matters. They don't rush to fill silences, because they know silence isn't empty. It's full of opportunity. The truth is, volume can often be a mask for insecurity. The louder someone speaks, the more they may be trying to convince themselves or others of something they don't fully believe. But presence is undeniable. It's the unshakable knowing that you don't have to prove anything. When you operate from that place, people listen more closely. You'll notice it in the way conversations shift, in how people begin to lean in when you speak. You're no longer trying to dominate the space. You become the space. Think of a mountain. It doesn't shout, it doesn't move, but it commands respect simply by being. That's presence. It comes from deep inner work, from setting standards for yourself, from mastering your habits, from showing up consistently when no one's watching. It's the result of keeping your word to yourself, of rising early when you don't feel like it, of pursuing growth quietly and persistently. When you've done the work in silence, you carry yourself differently. There's a calmness in your step, a quiet fire in your eyes. You don't need to raise your voice to make a point. Your energy already delivered it. In every boardroom, every relationship, every moment that matters, the one with the deepest presence holds the most influence. Not the loudest voice, not the flashiest words, just the clearest internal compass. That kind of presence can't be faked, and it can't be taught in one seminar or captured in a social media quote. It's earned through discipline, through self-respect, through stillness, through 1,000 small acts of personal excellence that no one else may see. And when you have it, you don't just enter the room, you own it quietly. Silence is strategic. It is not weakness, passivity, or absence. It is an intentional act of power and positioning. In a world obsessed with instant responses, hot takes, and constant expression, silence has become rare, and therefore more valuable than ever. When everyone rushes to speak, the one who pauses, who waits, who listens deeply, becomes the most unpredictable and commanding presence in the room. Silence allows you to see the full picture, while others are distracted by the sound of their own voice. It becomes a weapon of the wise, a filter that lets only what matters rise to the surface. There is a reason the most impactful leaders, thinkers, and strategists often speak last. They use silence as a tool to absorb, reflect, and refine their thoughts before they ever let them leave their mouths. They're not avoiding the conversation, they're mastering it in real time. When you're silent, you're not surrendering control, you're seizing it. Because while others reveal their thoughts, plans, and insecurities in a hurry to be heard, you're gathering information, studying dynamics, and calculating the most effective move. And when you finally do speak, your words land with precision and power because they weren't born of impulse. They were shaped by clarity. Silence also shows discipline. It demonstrates that you are not a slave to reaction, that you don't speak just to fill space or seek validation. It shows restraint in high pressure moments. The ability to hold your tongue while emotions rise is not weakness. It is emotional mastery. Anyone can yell back, interrupt, or defend themselves, but it takes a different kind of strength to pause, observe, and respond only when the time is right. This isn't just wise, it's strategic. You gain respect by showing that your words are not cheap or hurried. They are earned. Beyond conversations, silence is powerful in your personal development. It gives you space to think, to evaluate, to create. In the silence, you meet your true self. Without the noise of the outside world, you can hear your real thoughts, your real fears, and your real purpose. That space is where growth begins. That's where vision is sharpened. The most powerful decisions you'll ever make won't come when the world is screaming around you. They'll come in the quiet moments when you choose to disconnect, reflect, and decide your next move with intention. Strategic silence isn't about being passive or indifferent. It's about knowing when to speak and when to wait. It's about knowing that not every opinion deserves your reaction, not every battle deserves your energy, and not every silence needs to be broken. Silence used intentionally creates curiosity. It makes people wonder what you're thinking. It creates space for others to reflect on your presence and your confidence. In a world desperate for attention, the person who can remain calm and silent holds unmatched influence. Because silence, when chosen consciously, doesn't shrink your power. It amplifies it. Action speaks louder than words. It's an old saying, but still the truest measure of who we are and what we value. In a time where it's easy to say the right things, to post the perfect quote, to promise change, growth, or commitment, it's still action that draws the line between intention and impact. Words can be beautiful, inspiring, and even convincing, but without action to support them, they are empty echoes. People might hear what you say, but they'll always believe what you consistently do. There's something powerful about a person who doesn't need to explain themselves because their actions already reveal their truth. It's not about how passionately you talk about your goals, it's about the discipline you show when no one is watching. Are you doing the work in silence? Are you showing up even when you're tired, even when motivation is gone, even when no one is clapping? That's where real transformation happens. That's where people begin to respect you, not for the noise you make, but for the results you generate. Talk is easy, change is not. Saying you'll wake up early, start the business, commit to the habit, or become your best self is a step. But it's only the first step. Real progress is measured in effort, in routine, in perseverance when it would be easier to give in. You don't become trustworthy because you promise. Trust is built when you keep showing up, day after day, without needing to remind people of your intentions. They see it in your behavior. They feel it in your consistency. When you live by action, you also free yourself from needing constant validation. You stop needing to prove anything with your words, because your results speak for themselves. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've done the work, that you've earned your progress through grit, sacrifice, and repetition. You no longer have to chase approval or attention. Your path and your discipline command it for you. Think about the leaders, mentors, or role models you admire. It's not because they spoke more than others. It's because they lived what they believed. They demonstrated it. They made the sacrifices. They walked through failure and still kept going. That's what makes people unforgettable, not their words, but the way they lived them. The real voice of leadership is example. The loudest way to speak your truth is to embody it in motion. In the end, action is where your beliefs find breath. It's where vision becomes reality. It's where dreams step off the page and into the world. Your life is not shaped by what you hope or say or plan. It is shaped by what you do over and over again. The more you act in alignment with your values, the less you have to explain. You become known not for what you said you would do, but for what you did. Self-trust builds command. True influence doesn't begin with controlling others, it begins with mastering yourself. The foundation of any lasting leadership or personal power is rooted in how deeply you trust yourself. And that trust isn't something you're born with. It's something you earn, choice by choice, through the promises you keep with yourself when no one else is looking. Every time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how small, you send a signal to yourself, I can count on me. And over time, that builds unshakable internal authority. People often seek external validation to feel powerful, to feel in control, or to feel worthy. But the moment your confidence is tied to approval from others, your command becomes conditional and fragile. On the other hand, when you've built trust within yourself, you don't chase authority, you become it. Others can feel it. It's in the way you stand, the way you speak, the way you enter a room with no need to convince anyone of your value. You become calm, grounded, and steady, not because life is easy, but because you know you've got your back. Self-trust doesn't mean arrogance. It means knowing that even if you fall, you'll rise again. That even if doubt creeps in, you'll move anyway. That even if you don't have every answer, you'll figure it out. It's confidence born from evidence that you've survived hard things, that you've made tough decisions, that you've stayed consistent when it was easier to quit. And with every right choice made under pressure, your command deepens, not over others, but over your own emotions, your habits, and your direction. A person who trusts themselves doesn't need to be loud. They don't need to dominate or seek attention. Their presence speaks for itself. People naturally follow those who are sure of themselves because self-trust is rare in a world addicted to comparison and external praise. When you are led by your own compass, your clarity becomes contagious. Your decisiveness inspires confidence in others. And your ability to stand firm, especially in uncertain times, becomes your greatest asset. But self-trust also requires honesty. You can't build it on lies or avoidance. You build it by telling yourself the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. You build it by admitting when you're falling short and then choosing to realign. You build it when you stop making excuses and start taking ownership. That process might be quiet and internal, but its impact is loud and lasting. The more you live in alignment with your values, the more your actions and words match, the more powerful you become, not because you control others, but because you command respect without demanding it. That kind of authority can't be faked or forced. It radiates naturally from someone who has done the inner work. And in the end, that's what separates noise from leadership. The inner strength of someone who trusts themselves so deeply that the world can't help but pay attention. Less noise, more alignment. That's the secret to clarity, power, and long-term success in a world addicted to distraction. Noise is everywhere: opinions, trends, temptations, comparisons, and constant messages telling you what you should be, what you should chase, how you should live. The more you allow that noise in, the further you drift from your own inner voice, and the more you chase the world, the harder it becomes to find your center. But alignment is the opposite. Alignment is when your thoughts, words, and actions all move in the same direction. It's when who you are on the inside matches how you show up on the outside. It's quiet, yes, but in that quiet, there is unmatched power. When you start cutting through the noise, turning down the volume on opinions that don't matter and values that aren't yours, you begin to hear yourself more clearly. You realize that not every opportunity is meant for you. Not every invitation needs a yes, and not every battle is worth fighting. You stop trying to be everything to everyone and start becoming everything you were meant to be. That's alignment. It's when you no longer live by reaction, but by intention. And the more aligned you are, the less energy you waste. You are no longer pulled in a dozen directions trying to prove your worth. You're locked in, clear, focused. Purposeful, noise demands attention. Alignment earns respect. Noise is impulsive, scattered, loud. Alignment is calm, grounded, consistent. People who chase noise may gain quick wins, but they burn out fast. People who live in alignment build something lasting, whether it's a business, a legacy, a character, or a life that actually feels like their own. Because alignment isn't just about success, it's about peace. And peace is the real measure of a strong life. When you reduce the noise, you also reduce the gap between your values and your actions. You stop pretending, performing, or posturing for approval. You no longer need to speak on everything or be seen everywhere. You start moving in silence with purpose. You start building without announcing. You start showing up with such consistency that people begin to respect you not for your volume, but for your stability. And in a world that constantly shifts, stability is magnetic. Alignment also makes decisions easier. When you're aligned, you don't waste time overthinking or second guessing. You know your path, you know your priorities, and that knowing simplifies your choices. You say yes to what fuels you and no to what distracts you. Not with guilt, but with clarity. That clarity doesn't scream, it stands. And that kind of internal alignment changes everything. It gives you back your power, it sharpens your vision, and it allows you to move through life not chasing moments, but building meaning. Because when you trade noise for alignment, you stop trying to look powerful and start actually becoming it. Quiet confidence is magnetic. It doesn't seek attention, it attracts it. It doesn't demand validation, it earns respect. In a world where loud personalities often dominate the spotlight, the one who carries themselves with calm assurance stands out even more. Quiet confidence is not about shrinking or playing small. It's about knowing your value so deeply that you no longer feel the need to prove it to anyone. You don't have to raise your voice, show off, or compete to be noticed. Your energy, your presence, your certainty does the talking long before your words ever do. There's something incredibly powerful about a person who knows exactly who they are, what they stand for, and what they bring to the table without needing constant affirmation. You can see it in their posture, in their eyes, in the way they move through a room without trying to impress. They don't seek attention, and yet attention naturally finds them. Why? Because quiet confidence isn't forced, it's felt. It comes from experience, discipline, and a deep-rooted sense of self that no failure, no criticism, and no external judgment can shake. Confidence that is loud is often covering insecurity. It wants to be seen, heard, and acknowledged to feel worthy. But quiet confidence comes from a different place. It's not built on applause. It's built on inner work. It's built on showing up consistently, on doing the hard things when no one is watching, on knowing that you've earned your strength through effort, not performance. That kind of confidence doesn't fade when no one's looking. It actually grows stronger. People are drawn to those who seem unbothered by chaos, who remain steady under pressure, who don't need to speak over others to be heard. Quiet confidence speaks through restraint. It listens before responding. It waits before acting. It observes more than it reacts. And because of that, its moves are more calculated, more effective, more respected. In conversations, the person with quiet confidence doesn't interrupt. They don't need to dominate, but when they speak, everyone pays attention because they don't waste words. Every sentence is intentional. Every action is backed by thought. Every presence is backed by purpose. This kind of confidence doesn't fluctuate with wins and losses. It doesn't get louder with praise or quieter with criticism. It stays consistent because it doesn't rely on external input. It's driven by inner alignment. And that's what makes it so magnetic. People can sense authenticity. They can feel when someone is secure in themselves. That security creates safety, and safety builds trust. And in any room, on any stage, or in any relationship, trust is the most powerful currency you can carry. Quiet confidence doesn't rush. It doesn't chase. It doesn't crave. It simply is. And in its stillness, it speaks volumes. It walks into a room and instantly elevates it, not with volume, but with presence. That's the kind of power that doesn't fade, doesn't falter, and doesn't fail because it was built from the inside out.